Hey there, welcome back to the There I Said It channel. As usual, I'm Aris Rakorma. I know I've never introduced myself before, but I'll do the host skit for this particular video. As well, on this channel, I talk about pretty much anything that comes to my mind, and usually it centers around Nigeria. That's the way I like it. Right, so for today's topic, for today's issue, I didn't do any research into this particular one because it's a topic that brings about so much sadness and I want to say pain, but it does bring about a lot of sadness and it's kind of depressing. But it's something that we constantly need to remind ourselves of so that we can stay on the safe side of it. And that's the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, especially on the part of being kidnapped, getting kidnapped, and the whole ransoming process, and one chance, all of those phenomena that happen in different states. They all have their brand in different states, and every single scammer in these circles have like the tactics that they pull to get people. And you know your story, I know my story. I would like to say that, no, I would like to say I have almost been kidnapped like twice, but because of like the stories that pass around and the words of advice and words of caution that people spread around both on social media and in person, I was able to avoid both of those situations. I'm going to recount some of them for you to show you how different they were. Right, the first one at night. Right, this one happened recently, earlier this year. So it was late, I say not really late, around 7 to 8 p.m. I was coming back from somewhere and it was in one of these KK buses. Prior to this, I had gotten information that there's a new one going around these KK buses with, they have like these blackouts on their cars, on their windows rather. They should be careful of those ones, try not to get into them. And so I was just like, I had gotten this advice like a day before. And so I was coming back from somewhere. It was one of these bus stops where there are a lot of buses just waiting to grab people and things were moving quickly. And so I had to get into one of the buses. And the first bus I entered, it was completely blacked out. Now usually I like sitting in the front. That's usually where I like to sit. But this particular one, the front was filled. But the second front, that's directly behind the driver, was not as filled. And I thought that was a good idea. I thought it was still a good space. But here's the thing. The entire thing was blacked out. The entire vehicle was blacked out. Like as I entered, I could feel like I was entering into like a room that all the doors had been shut in and it was only guys and these guys were looking eagerly at me as I was entering. I just gave them a once over and I said, no wait, I forgot something and I left. I gingerly queued down. Mind you, while I entered a different vehicle up front, no, while I was going back home, just like I think a vehicle passed us, and then a girl also passed. Then the person beside me started talking about, oh, they've taken another person. And she started recounting the story of how the day before she had been a victim of this one chance people. She entered their vehicle, they took all her things, and I was like, okay, well, that could have been me. But, thank God that didn't happen. And so the second story happened, I think like 2 years ago. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, say. This one was in daylight, broad daylight. I was going to school and I entered a vehicle, right? At first, it was just me. It was normal car, not the bus. It was just me, the driver, and one other person up front. And the first thing I noticed was that the back seat of the car was wet. And they were like, they kept to approve on the floor. But you know how Nigeria is, none of these vehicles are perfect. And it was raining. Was it rainy season? But it wasn't that much that I was going to turn the vehicle down. Plus, I was actually desperate. I was late, there were no vehicles, so I would just take what I could get. Right? And so I got into the vehicle, we're going. But this person started giving me story upon story about how, no, at first it was him and the driver, the person in the front and the driver were talking, and they were talking about him. And somehow they included me into their conversation, and they started talking about how it was how the man's journey, basically how he was supposed to go and get this thing, how all of a sudden he was lost, and then next thing you know, he was like, oh, this is actually where he needs to go to get the money. It was money he wanted to get. Now I was late. I knew that I was not going to be getting any other vehicle to carry me to where I was going to go because the roads were empty. And so I was like, okay, yes, we can take a detour. Let's go and get this man's thing. Right? Hello. Okay, this isn't working. Anyways, so we could go and get this man's thing. And that was fine. we just decided to do that. And so we went ahead, the first detour. The second detour, it was still close to my area. I knew the place pretty well, so I wasn't that scared. All the warning sign had already started flashing in my head. But as they wanted to veer into a deeper part of that entire area that I was not familiar with, I was filled with a bunch of bushes. I just said no. I said no, please. I'm coming down here and now. And I immediately left and I just went to. That would have been another incident. And I would like to say that it's the way they happened has made it such a commonplace event for me. The way the stories I hear online of other people's experiences, it's such a commonplace experience for me now that, you know, you think about how is this supposed to be the new normal, and exactly what can I do to like get out of this situation if it ever happens to me again. And so this is one of the things I've come up with, right? The major thing for me right now would be telling someone where you're going to. At every point in time, with all the kidnappings that have been happening, even though it's daylight or at night, like both of my experiences have shown, it can happen anytime, and you can never, it doesn't really occur to you that, boom, look, you're in danger. Sometimes it's just a go with the flow thing, because these people, they're improving their tactics every day. So it's really wise to let people know where you're going to at every point in time. And when it comes to like roommates, family, have a system of, you know, being able to understand exactly where you both are at every point in time. And your phone, your devices, keep them on fully charged whenever you're going out. And let it be that you always have like enough credit in your phone so that you're not in the middle of nowhere stuck trying to do a WhatsApp call, but there's no network or something. You want to be able to be prepared in case anything happens, because it can happen at any time in this Nigeria. It can, and you will never know. There's this sense of it can never be me because the situation is so far away from me, but it can happen, and it does happen. Now, I wanted to bring a lot of statistics into today's video of the rates, kind of like to reinforce the idea that we are surely not safe, but I feel like that would only reinforce panic, and that is not something I think we should be doing at this point in time. I think that rather than arming ourselves with news, rather than arming ourselves with details of how horrific some of these events are, we should arm ourselves with how it can be prevented, right? How do we actively prevent kidnapping and one chance and all these other things that happen, to the extent that the people that do these things are almost discouraged, that they are forced to find some other means, some other reason, some other way to make their money rather than doing what they're currently doing. I wish that we would, but I know that I do want it to be that more voices, more people are coming out here and talking about what we can actually do to avoid some of these situations. Because let me tell you something now, the Nigerian government, the one that we are all depending on to fix insecurity, protect us. It's the federal government's duty to tackle insecurity, but we all know some of the things that's going on behind the scenes and how far away that may be from reality. So it's left to us to take matters into our own hands, to develop our own systems, just like we have with our informal economy, develop our own systems for keeping ourselves safe. And I saw a post recently. This is about keeping ourselves accountable, right? I saw a post recently about someone said that if they were to host like an interview, if kidnappers were to put out job offers out there, we are hiring kidnappers, interview at so times, sending your CV or blah 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 blah, that people would actively apply. You would see people in line, and it's not just like 1,000 people. You will see thousands of people applying for that thing, because we are like 200 and something plus in Nigeria, and there are a lot of people that are steeped in poverty that would do anything to get out of it. They don't even mind telling their vote. So what do they, why should they care about kidnapping one or two other persons? So there are people that will do this. And it's something that should be actively discouraged, because you are simply a bad person. You're not trying to survive. You are a bad person. You are no different from some of the politicians that we have that are eating money for themselves. You are not a good person. You are evil. You are an agent of the devil or whatever negative power you believe in. That is what you are, quite simply said. There is nothing good about, oh, you're just struggling for the money, oh, you're just balling, you're doing anything to us. So that's a very big lie. You are actively putting other people's life in danger, and you're taking away from their hard work, and you are causing pain, and you are causing sadness, and you are causing all of these negative things. That does not make you good in any way. It does not justify the fact that you want to be rich. doesn't. So, anyways, like I said, we should, instead of bringing about all the negative news that's out there, instead of actively posting and spreading this negativity, I think that we should always attach some level of positivity or some action to some of these posts that we're making. Just like I said with my last video, that with regards to ineffective or rather surface level activism and how it may appear, how the conditions under which it usually appears. And one of them was that people do not know what the right action is. And so I would like to put it to you, like I'm saying it now, for every piece of like bad news, because that's what it is at this point, although it's still very informative, I will not discourage sharing such news. It's still very informative, but try to put at least one or two things, not in a judgy way, like, oh, why did she go out at night, blah, blah, blah. No, like put out like words of caution, verifiable, that you've done your research on, or at the very least, please, that could actually help the other person. Put out like, oh, this happened at so please be careful of this and that. These were the details of what happened. So that more than just being saddened by the news of all the negative things that's happening, we have a path, a plan of action with regards to some of these things. So that's what I'm going to put out there today. This video was basically just about insecurity and my point of view on everything that has been happening and how we can tackle it. That's all I wanted to say for this video. So I'll leave with this, or rather I'll end with this recap. My major issue, whenever I look at some of these news, the only thing that comes to mind at every point in time is that we should have more people that know what they're talking about, more lawyers or politicians or activists, people that know the right steps to be taken, rather than the rest of us that are just running around here like headless chickens who have heads because of we're not seeing, we're not thinking. Because at this point in time, we don't have the information. So I like to call out on those people, people that know, come out and inform us. That's all I need. It would go a long way. Thank you. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Please do like, subscribe, and comment if you have any thoughts, or if you have any opinions or ideas on things we said. If you have anything that you'd like to share, I'd really like to, hear from you. Thanks. Bye.